Hello everybody, my name is Dan Rossi and I own Trees to Treasures Woodworking in Fulton, New York. So I'm doing this video just for the guys who want to know whether or not they got what it takes to go from hobby to professional woodworking, and or what it takes to become a professional woodworker. So, without further ado, I'm going to give you my backstory, how I got into it, and we'll go from there. So, I grew up, my father was a professional contractor, so every summer vacation from school, my brother and I, we worked with my father, we built houses. So, and we didn't contract out, subcontract. We built the whole entire house from bottom to top. So we do 2 houses a summer, and then on every holiday or break from school, we were working on an addition or working on a remodel or something of the sorts. Sometimes in the evenings, if pressured, once the homework was done, we'd have to go out and help my dad work on whatever jobs he had going to. That's just the way it was. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. Honest, and back then we didn't have there was no internet, there wasn't any of that stuff, so there was nothing to entertain you. Honestly, I think we still had a black and white TV at that time. No cable, we just had an antenna. So there wasn't much to do outside of play with your friends, which you did that whenever possible. So I was probably at 12, I was probably running a circular saw. Matter of fact, probably younger than that. I remember doing stuff, when I was in the Scouts even. But anyway, that's how I got into woodworking as a whole, as a contractor. So later on in life, I took a job with a filter company, now is known as Clear Edge. Back then it was P&S Filtration or something. It went through a few name changes. And the company when I worked for was a huge company. It was owned by a whole group out of Europe. And so there's probably 300 plants worldwide. Didn't all do filters. There was all kinds of other things that we made. Did plastics and we did rubbers and you name it, we did it. So I was a plant engineer at our local plant, and I worked on an international team doing automation of equipment for other facilities. I did that till the middle 2000s, probably, maybe sooner, maybe earlier. And I had enough, and I had enough of the travel. I can't tell you how many functions with my children that I just couldn't do anymore. So, but anyway, during that time, I also was doing contracting. I had a daughter that had a chromosome disorder, and one of the side effects of this disorder was short height, and so back then growth hormone was not FDA approved. So the only way to get it was to purchase it. And at the time, I believe it was $1,200 a week. And you want to talk about scrambling to try to afford $1,200 a week for your child. I hustled, and I hustled hard. So I did a lot of remodels after I got out of work. If I wasn't on the road, if I wasn't in Europe someplace, I was doing contracting work. And so I don't know, I can't even tell you how many remodels I did. and I hustled hard to try to keep my daughter with growth hormone, and which their whole goal was to try to get her so she'd be tall enough to see over the steering wheel when she got old enough, and which they succeeded. She's still short, but she drives, no issues. Uh, and so that's my backstory. So when I had enough of the filter company, they were moving our local facility down to Oklahoma, and I got offered a position as plant engineer down there, and I turned it down. I had enough. I wasn't moving my family. Uh, I had enough, so I decided that I was going to step out. So I got into the woodworking business, and so I had two mentors in the woodworking business, and one of them decided he was getting out of the business, and he had a successful cabinet shop, and he decided that he was going to, he had enough. He couldn't take it anymore. And so that's how I got into it. And so I learned from him, and I rented his shop, and he had a beautiful showroom there, and that was amazing. And so he was a professional finisher, second to none. He was top of the line as far as finishing. He could anything. He could make look like $1 million, and that is no exaggeration. He would spend hours on end sanding till it was perfect. And so he taught me everything he knew. However, he was so burned out from woodworking that I was having a tough time. If I wasn't in the shop, he would be chasing clients away. So he wasn't a good person to have in the shop. And so, or he would, because the shop was on his property, so if he needed money, he would take a job. If he knew it was the day I wasn't going to be there, he'd bang it out, and then I wouldn't get paid for it, even though he's using my materials. And so that didn't work out. And the shop was 30 miles from my house, and I found myself there 7 days a week, traveling back and forth. And I was putting a ton of miles on my truck and wasn't seeing a lot of customers coming in the door. So at the same time, I met another friend of mine. Well, actually, before I met Keith from the other place that I was renting, I met a gentleman named Jose. And Jose was an incredible woodworker. And his backstory was he worked in the glass industry, and he got injured, and he just hated it, and he decided that he couldn't take it anymore. He was out for weeks because he sent a piece of glass through his foot in a bottle making machine, and so he was out for weeks, and he was returning back to work when he finally got cleared by the doctor. And he was coming out. He was out in Washington State, I think Washington State. And he decided that he couldn't take it anymore, so he wasn't going back. His hobby was woodworking, so that's what he was going to do. So he went into woodworking, and he made bunk beds. That's how he started his business, was making bunk beds. And he told me, he said, I had a little shed. And that's how I started, he told me. So when I met him was here in New York. He had a beautiful cabinet shop. He had a finishing room underneath his shop. And he had the main shop on the main floor. And he kept all of his hardwoods in the front. There was a building there. And so he was just is a genuinely nice guy. That everyone loves him. His name is Jose. And so I met him from answering a Craigslist ad because I was needing some 8-quarter cherry at the time. I was doing a bunch of manels, fireplace manels. and carving them on my CNC. And so he had a bunch of kiln dried hardwood, 8/4 wood, and uh, he wasn't killing you for the price. He was literally, I think it was like a buck over board foot over wholesale, and all he wanted to do was help keep himself in wood and help offset some of the prices of his wood. And he had his kids were working in his shop, and during their summer, it brought back some serious memories for me, I'll tell you. And so anyway, I remember I was answering, and I remember I went into this shop. He invited me in to see his shop, and I was flabbergasted. Now this is before I rented the other professional shop, and I was just a hobbyist, and so I go in to see Jose, and to get some wood from him, and he's picking. I don't know. I bought a couple, 200 or 300 board foot of 8/4, and so got through loading it, and he invited me into a shop, and I go into a shop, and I see all these dressers there that he just got through with before they went down to finishing, and I looked at the drawer fronts, and they were they were like bear claws. And I looked at them, and I stalled a minute, and I said, "You're the guy." And I remember the year before, I was at the State Fair, New York State Fair, and they had all these furniture awards in one of the buildings, and Jose had won every award there was for this furniture making, and he used only the best of the best for hardwood. So he handpicked everything, and everything was high. Everything Jose ever did was highly figured. So if you bought something from Jose, you knew it was going to be quilted, or it was going to be tiger maple, or it was going to be whatever it was going to be highly figured. And so I said, "You're the guy," and he said, "Yeah." He said, I do build for one show a year. I do the Lilac Festival in Rochester, New York." And he says, I rent a big tent, and I said, I fill it with nothing but this stuff. So I literally use what sales I get. I'll do kitchens here and there, but the bulk of my money comes in from that one sale a year, and that's how I do it. And so I started an incredible friendship with Jose, and friends till today. And so Jose's passionate about everything he does. He also is a beekeeper, and he does that full time, and he's got more bees than anyone I know. It's like incredible. Nothing like going into he's got a big barn, and you'll go in there, and he's got his bees stored there for the winter so they don't get super cold. And he literally stacks his whole barn with all his honeybees. But anyway, getting back, so I found this other shop, and things just weren't working out there. I learned a lot, and I learned the next thing, and the next thing was the fact that I had to get, when I started that shop, the one incredible thing, and this is one of the things you got to learn, is that if you're going to make it, you got to have wholesale products. So you got to have suppliers. And as a hobbyist, nobody will talk to you. And so the one advantage to renting a shop from Keith was he was already established. So, I mean, I remember years ago trying to get lacquer finishes from a supplier. They wouldn't sell them to me. They just wouldn't do it. But so I went in, I rented from Keith, and I rented with him, and I worked with him for a couple of years. And so Keith, the first thing he did, my first day in there, was he gets on the phone to every supplier he's got. He calls them up, he tells them to get into the shop, that he was no longer in business. There was a new guy in town. So previously I already had all my paperwork done, and my sales tax and all that, all the important business stuff taken care of. And so he just set up all these appointments with all these suppliers. They came in, they happily supplied me with. All of a sudden now I had finishing products from more than one company. I had wholesale hardwoods from more than one company and sheet goods. And each of them had their advantage. Some of them, I had one that was close, so if I needed one board to finish a job, I could go and pick it up, and they would sell me one board. And there was another one that was farther away where they supplied the same finished products but more. So, and I'll get into that in other videos of tips and tricks and what to do and suppliers and that kind of thing. But anyway, so they had their advantages, and so you had and then I had hardware suppliers, and and the one thing I learned early on was that when you got a wood shop, everybody and their brother that cuts wood, they've bought a wood mill and they want to sell you this wood. And unless they know how to kiln dry, or you've got a kiln and you dry it and you know what you're doing, you don't want to go that route, because you don't want to be buying air dried stock and build a kitchen, and then 6 months later your kitchen's all warping, and the guy you bought it from for next to nothing they're not backing it, you know. So my wholesalers, if I had a kitchen that had any issues, and I did have one, and it was an expensive one, it was an $85,000 kitchen, and I had a bunch of finished crack, and I had no idea what was going on, and it turned into a big issue. At the end of the day, it turned out to be the panels, and I did them out of MDF, but because it was painted, MDF works best. But there was an issue with the MDF, but I was sweating bullets, I'll tell you what. And so anyway, the supplier backed it. They would pay for the whole job, no problem, as far as redoing the job, my cost of labor. And that you don't get that from a secondary supplier that you're buying parts from. So that's the advantage of being able to get that warranty from your supplier. But that's another story. So anyway, getting back to my story, so I have my supplier set up. Now, the other thing that you got to keep, and this is going to be number one on this list, and it's time. And when you're a one-man show to start out, it's a lot of time, and you got to realize it's a lot of family time that you're missing. And so you got to make sure that you've got the stomach for that and your family's on board, because if they're not, you're never going to make it. The next critical thing, if you're going to go professional, you need tools. And you get what you pay for. And I'm going to tell you right now that, to start off, it's fine. I was never a big fan of Harbor Freight, and I know a lot of guys swear by the stuff, but very few things you'll ever see in my shop that's Harbor Freight, because I gotta tell you, more than once they've bit me in the ass, and I'm not that guy. So I only buy name brand stuff, and so as far as name brand stuff, it does not have to be new name brand stuff. I bought a lot of my stuff during the downturn, 2007, 2008. I bought a lot of my stuff when cabinet shops were going under. And I don't know that I've bought, outside of like my Festool products, I wouldn't buy one of those used. Not that, you can't get a good deal, but I don't know, how bad it's been beaten, and I'm not that guy to find out. So, and some Festool stuff I couldn't live without, and other Festool stuff I bought, and it was just a big waste of money. And I'll go through some of my tools at a shop tour of what's worth it and what's not when you're buying tools. But anyway, things weren't working out at the other shop, and I moved back to this shop. This is my home shop now. I got like a 5-car garage, and so it's tight, and it's super tight. And most of you hobbyists have got even less area than this. You're working on a two-car garage or even smaller. And it can be done depending on what you want to do, what your goals are. But I got to tell you, it's critical to be organized, which I'm not that guy either. Usually I'm scrambling to find enough time in my day. So it's like when I can't take it anymore, I'm cleaning. And until then, I'm fighting it. And so I'll give a shop tour in another video. If you like the content and you think you want to take a shop tour, or you want to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. And right now, as you can see, I've got a kitchen in the works here, and I've got cabinet boxes every place. And I really don't have, you couldn't see half of my equipment I got. And so I'll go through what I got, what I swear by, what I don't, and what I use daily and what I don't. And maybe give you some tips and tricks. So as a retake, the first thing is you got to be up. If you want to be a professional woodworker, you got to be up for it. You got to be able to learn. You got to be able to take it from mistakes. And you've got to be ready for anything, because it's like in this business you're going to find out it's feast or famine. And either you haven't got enough time or you haven't got enough business and you're scrambling, and so you got to market yourself. Me, I'm picky, because dealing with the public is hard, and you got to be ready for that. And so if I get a gut feeling that I don't want to work with a person that brings a job to me, I will not take the job. If you find that the job doesn't excite you, now if you're afraid of it, I gotta tell you, the best way to learn something is jump right in. But if it's not something you're passionate about, where it's going to be a chore, walk away from it. It's not worth it. Trust me. I've taken too many jobs that I thought, and especially for friends, that want you to do something, and it's not something you want to do. And I got to tell you, it's a long go of it when you're doing that. I've got a few things going for me. So I've got a CNC that I use, obviously, and that's one of the things I wished before I started, I went all in and I bought a professional one. And I'll give you a recommendation in another video when I'm doing a CNC, a shop tour, and talking about the CNC. But I gotta tell you that if you want to get into business, you really want some good products. Leasing a CNC is a good way to get a quality machine at an affordable rate that you can afford and keep business going. So When things are slow here, I also make parts for manufacturing companies. And so like today I'm in the shop because this is a Saturday, and I'm in the shop because I've got to make 64 parts for a local glass company for inspection equipment parts. And this one's going to be, so I don't even, they supply me with the material. All I do is, I do the drawings. I charge them to do the drawings because it takes time. And it's something you got to learn going in, is that you can't be afraid to charge people for your time because it's valuable. You only got so much of it. So I charge them to do drawings. These ones I already have in stock, so it's just a matter of pulling them up, so they don't get a drawing charge for that. But when they bring me a new one, they get a new product goes on, then I make a new, and it's a new drawing charge. And so today I'm making 64 parts for them. They supply me with the materials, and they give me so they need these parts by Monday. So guess what I'm doing today? I'm making parts on the CNC. But that's another video, and I just want to thank you, and we'll get back into a shop tour. Please subscribe if you would, and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. Hopefully I'll get this kitchen out the door here shortly, and then I'll clean my shop up, little dinky shop that it is. And also this machine behind me, this is a 3-phase machine. The one disadvantage to being at my home is the fact that I don't have 3-phase power, so I gotta put a rotary phase converter in. So I'm gonna do a video on that, and I'm gonna put a rotary. I do have some other 3-phase equipment here, but I power those with inverters because they're smaller horsepower. This one here is bigger, so I've got to have enough horsepower to be able to power this. But anyway, thanks for watching, and until the next video, have a great day.